The steady hand of Police Chief Boyd Van Voren slipped slightly as he approached the front door of the Hanson residence, holiday greeting in hand. December 15th, 2021. Millbank, South Dakota. Population 3,000. The kind of town where everyone knows your name, your business, and the secrets you think you're keeping. He didn't know then that the Christmas card clutched between his fingers, festive red and green, bearing wishes of peace and joy, would become the unlikely key that unlocked a house of horrors. That his casual question about family relations would prompt 5 chilling words from Brent Hanson's lips. They no longer live here. And then that slashing motion of Brent's hand, that half-whispered confession. I snapped. Behind that door, concealed within the walls of what should have been a home preparing for both Christmas and the imminent birth of a baby girl, lay the brutal truth. A body hidden behind sheetrock, another under a tarp, and a 3-year-old boy being cared for by the very hands that had orphaned him just days before. In the silence that followed Brent's confession, as snowflakes began to fall outside, the Christmas card trembled in the police chief's hand, the mundane instrument of discovery in a tragedy that would shatter not just a family, but an entire community's sense of safety and understanding of the darkness that can live next door. This is not just another true crime story. This is a descent into the twisted psychology of family violence that escalated from dispute to massacre in the season of peace and goodwill. This is the story of the Millbank family massacre, where a Christmas card revealed a bloodbath and where a brother's resentment festered into an unthinkable act of destruction. Every story has its beginning, a place where bonds are formed, secrets are kept, and lives intertwine. This story begins in Millbank, South Dakota, a town of roughly 3,000 residents where winter transforms the landscape into a pristine white canvas with temperatures regularly plunging below zero. It's the kind of close-knit community where everyone knows their neighbors and violent crime is rare. As December 2021 approached, the town was preparing for Christmas celebrations, blissfully unaware of the horror unfolding behind closed doors at the Hanson residence. From the outside, the arrangement seemed practical, 2 brothers co-owning a property while maintaining separate living spaces. But beneath this arrangement lurked something darker, something that neither of them could fully acknowledge, let alone resolve. As the months passed, their relationship only grew more strained. The July incident over Jessica's dog, when Brent had given it away without permission while she was receiving treatment at a mental health facility, had been the first public fracture. When confronted about this betrayal, Brent had pushed both Clyde and Jessica, even striking Jessica on the head during the altercation. This assault had been serious enough to result in charges against Brent. More importantly, it had instilled such fear in Clyde and Jessica that they took drastic steps to protect themselves within their shared home, subdividing the property to create physical barriers between themselves and Brent. What might seem on the surface like a trivial dispute over a pet had revealed dangerous undercurrents in the family dynamic tensions that would continue to simmer in the months that followed. In the background of this family drama was 3-year-old Ty, a toddler who moved innocently between these invisible boundaries, unaware of the growing darkness around him. As December arrived, Jessica entered her 9th month of pregnancy. Annika's birth was imminent, a joyful event that should have brought the family closer together. Instead, the physical and emotional distance between the brothers had never been greater. What was going through Brent Hanson's mind during these months remains largely unknown. Had the co-ownership of the property become a source of resentment? Did he harbor some grudge against Jessica that had intensified over time? Or was there some perceived slight or injustice that festered in his thoughts until it became all-consuming? Clyde, a devout Christian who valued his family above all, tried to navigate these troubled waters with patience and faith. Jessica, despite her struggles with mental health that had required treatment earlier that year, was devoted to her family and just days away from delivering their second child. Friends described her as compassionate and gentle. As the wedding day drew nearer, the tension between the brothers became impossible to ignore. They tried to act as if nothing had changed, as if their relationship was the same as it had always been. But they both knew it wasn't. Clyde's behavior became anxious, his mood swinging from joy about his coming daughter to despair about the deteriorating home situation. He threw himself into the Christmas preparations with a fervor that surprised everyone, but those closest to him could see the cracks beginning to form. Brent, meanwhile, was a picture of calm on the outside, but inside he was a storm of emotions, resentment, jealousy, and an overwhelming sense of perceived injustice. Jessica, in her focus on her pregnancy and 3-year-old son, was preparing for Annika's arrival, gathering tiny clothes, setting up the nursery, dreaming of the life she was about to share with her expanded family. She tried not to dwell on the tension that hung in the air of their shared home, like a heavy fog, thick and suffocating. She couldn't understand the way Clyde would sometimes startle at unexpected sounds from downstairs, as if he were afraid of something or someone. And then there were the moments when Clyde and Brent would cross paths, moments that were tense and charged with unspoken accusations. A glance held a fraction too long, words bitten back before they could escape. These moments were brief, fleeting, but they were enough to stir a sense of unease in those who noticed them. Brent was struggling too, caught in a web of his own making, trapped between the reality of his situation and the distorted version that existed in his mind. The closer they got to Christmas, the more the tension grew. Clyde found himself waking up in the middle of the night, listening for sounds from the apartment below, heart pounding in his chest. He would lie there, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing with thoughts of how to protect his family, how to repair the fractured relationship with his brother. And so, with every passing day, the suspense built, the tension between Clyde and Brent becoming more and more unbearable. December 12th was looming on the horizon like a storm cloud, dark and ominous, threatening to destroy everything in its path. What happened on that Sunday set in motion events that would culminate in one of South Dakota's most shocking family massacres, leaving a community stunned and a 3-year-old boy orphaned just days before Christmas. Sunday, December 12th, 2021, marked the beginning of the end. On this day, while Clyde was alone in the upstairs apartment, Brent made a fateful decision. Armed with a baseball bat, he ascended the stairs to confront his brother. The violence that erupted in the Hansen home was not a single explosive moment, but unfolded over 2 horrific days. On Sunday, December 12th, Brent Hansen chose his moment carefully. Waiting until Clyde was alone in the upstairs apartment, Brent armed himself with a baseball bat, a weapon that requires proximity and force, suggesting a deeply personal attack. With calculated violence, Brent struck his brother in the head with enough force to kill him instantly. What followed revealed the premeditated nature of the crime. Rather than reporting what he had done or fleeing the scene, Brent made the deliberate decision to conceal his brother's body. This wasn't a hasty attempt to hide evidence. Brent went so far as to conceal Clyde's body behind sheetrock, an effort that required time and planning. Then Brent waited. Monday morning, December 13th, brought Jessica home, completely unaware that she was walking into a death trap, or that her husband's body lay hidden within their apartment. For this attack, Brent had chosen a different weapon, a machete. The change in weapon itself speaks to premeditation, a conscious choice, rather than an impulsive act with whatever was at hand. When Jessica entered, Brent struck. The machete connected with her head, killing both the expectant mother and her unborn child just days away from birth. Once again, Brent took steps to conceal his crime, this time placing Jessica's body under a tarp in the upstairs apartment. With both parents dead and their bodies hidden, Brent then took their 3-year-old son, Ty, to his downstairs apartment. In perhaps the most chilling aspect of this crime, for the next 2 days, Brent cared for the child whose parents he had just murdered, creating a grotesque parody of family life while the bodies cooled upstairs. For nearly 48 hours, no one reported Clyde and Jessica missing. Their absence didn't immediately raise alarm in the community or among their extended family. The bodies remained undiscovered as Brent maintained a facade of normalcy, caring for his orphaned nephew in the same building where he had committed the murders. This period of deceptive calm ended on Wednesday morning, December 15th, when Police Chief Boyd Van Voren delivered a Christmas card to Brent Hansen. During their conversation, Van Voren casually inquired about Brent's relationship with his relatives, referencing the previous assault charge involving Jessica. Brent's response was as cryptic as it was disturbing. "They no longer live here." Then, making a slashing motion with his hand, he admitted, "I snapped." The Christmas card in Police Chief Boyd Van Voren's hand was intended as a gesture of holiday goodwill. On that frigid December morning in 2021, as he stood at the doorway of the Hansen residence in Millbank, South Dakota, the chief could never have anticipated the chilling confession he was about to hear. These alarming statements didn't immediately reveal the full horror of what had transpired, but they raised enough concern that when a report came in later that day about blood visible on the door of the Hansens' residence, authorities quickly connected the dots and conducted a welfare check at the property. What they discovered was devastating. Clyde's body concealed behind sheetrock and Jessica's body hidden under a tarp, both bearing injuries consistent with homicidal violence. Meanwhile, 3-year-old Ty had been in the care of the very man who had orphaned him, a psychological contradiction that highlights the complex and disturbing nature of family violence. The discovery of the bodies on December 15th, 2021, set in motion the rapid unraveling of Brent Hansen's brief attempt to conceal his crimes. Following his cryptic comments to Police Chief Van Voren and the subsequent welfare check that revealed the bodies, Brent was quickly taken into custody. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The physical evidence at the scene told a gruesome story that matched the confession Brent would soon provide. The injuries to both victims aligned with the weapons he admitted to using: a baseball bat for Clyde and a machete for Jessica. The manner in which the bodies had been concealed, Clyde behind sheetrock and Jessica under a tarp, provided further evidence of premeditation and attempts to avoid detection. Blood evidence, including the telltale blood on the door that had prompted the welfare check, offered forensic confirmation of the violence that had occurred inside. Perhaps most damning were Brent's own words, first to Police Chief Van Voren and later in his detailed confession to investigators. By the afternoon of December 15th, authorities had charged Brent Monroe Hansen with 3 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count each for Clyde, Jessica, and their unborn child Annika. Additionally, he faced 3 alternative counts of second-degree murder. The inclusion of the unborn child as a victim reflected both legal recognition of fetal personhood in cases of violent crime and the particular heinousness of killing a woman just days away from giving birth. Brent's bond was set at an extraordinary $5 million cash, reflecting both the severity of the crimes and the perceived risk to the community. The legal machinery began to move, inexorably drawing toward a resolution that would come approximately 9 months later. The room, once filled with the promise of new life and Christmas celebrations, had become a crime scene, the remnants of a family shattered by violence. The nursery, prepared with such hope and joy for baby Annika, would stand empty, a monument to what might have been. And 3-year-old Ty, too young to comprehend the magnitude of what had happened, had lost everything in a span of days. In September 2022, Brent Monroe Hansen pleaded guilty to 3 counts of first-degree murder as part of a plea agreement. In exchange for his guilty plea, the 3 alternative counts of second-degree murder were dropped, and Brent avoided the possibility of facing the death penalty. The court sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole for each of the 3 murder counts, with the sentences to run consecutively. This sentencing essentially guaranteed that Brent would spend the remainder of his life behind bars, with no chance of release. The community of Millbank was left to grapple with the shocking violence that had occurred in their small town. A GoFundMe page was created to support Ty's future care, with the family describing Clyde and Jessica as kind, modest people and devout Christians. The statement released through this fundraiser offered a glimpse into the profound grief experienced by the victims' loved ones. Shocked and utterly distraught, do not begin to describe the condition my family is in. While the legal case concluded with a definitive sentence, a series of unexpected twists emerged in the aftermath of this tragedy, revealing layers of loss beyond the immediate horror of the murders. The first twist came in the form of Jessica's sister Jasmine King's reaction to the plea deal. Despite the severe sentence of 3 consecutive life terms without parole, Jasmine expressed profound disappointment with the agreement. She stated that her family had strongly desired the death penalty for Brent and were upset that they hadn't been consulted about the plea agreement. This highlights the often overlooked reality that legal resolutions don't always align with the emotional needs of victims' families, who may feel that even the most severe prison sentences cannot balance the loss of their loved ones. But an even more heartbreaking twist emerged in the fate of 3-year-old Ty Hansen, the sole survivor of the immediate family. Having lost both his parents and his unborn sister in the tragedy, Ty faced an uncertain future. In what should have been a natural progression, Jessica's sister Jasmine King attempted to adopt her nephew, seeking to maintain his connection with his maternal family. Yet, in a cruel twist of fate, South Dakota Child Protective Services ultimately denied this request, placing Ty with another family instead. For Jessica's relatives, this decision added another unbearable layer of loss to their already overwhelming grief. They had not only lost their loved ones to violence, but now also lost the opportunity to raise Ty, the living legacy of Clyde and Jessica. This secondary trauma, the separation of Ty from his extended family, created a ripple effect of pain that extended the tragedy beyond the initial murders. For a family already shattered by violence, being denied the chance to care for the orphaned child represented a system failing those who had already suffered unimaginable loss. Exhausted and broken, Jasmine collapsed into tears when she received the news, her body shaking with uncontrollable sobs. The realization of what had been lost, not just her sister, brother-in-law, and unborn niece, but now her nephew as well, settled over her like a heavy, suffocating blanket. She was alone now, completely and utterly alone, with nothing but the echoes of a family that had once been whole. Perhaps the most disturbing psychological twist in this case remains Brent's behavior after the murders, caring for 3-year-old Ty, while the bodies of the child's parents remained hidden in the same building. This paradoxical behavior suggests a compartmentalization that allowed him to maintain certain caring relationships even while destroying others. How could the same hands that wielded a baseball bat and machete against his brother and sister-in-law then gently care for their child? This contradiction points to the complex psychology of family violence, where love and hate, care and harm can exist simultaneously in disturbing proximity. The Millbank massacre forces us to confront uncomfortable truths about family violence. The warning signs had been present. The July assault over Jessica's dog had been a clear red flag, a moment when intervention might have prevented the escalation to murder 5 months later. Yet, like many cases of family violence, these warning signs were not enough to prevent tragedy. As snow continued to blanket the quiet streets of Millbank in the days following the discovery, the community was left to grapple with a new reality. The peaceful facade of small-town life had been shattered, revealing that the most dangerous threats sometimes come not from strangers, but from within our own homes, from the people who should be closest to us. In the end, the most haunting aspect of the Millbank massacre may be its ordinariness, not in the level of violence, which was extreme, but in the pattern it followed. Like so many cases of family violence, it began with seemingly minor disputes, escalated to documented assault, and culminated in homicide when warning signs went unaddressed. Behind closed doors, within the walls of an unassuming home in a quiet South Dakota town, a family was destroyed from within a tragedy both unique in its specific horror and tragically common in its broader patterns. The legacy of Clyde, Jessica, and Annika Hansen lives on not only in the memory of their loved ones, but also in the difficult questions their deaths force us to confront about how we recognize, respond to, and prevent family violence before it claims more lives. As we fade to black, we leave you with this final thought. In a world where tension and resentment can simmer beneath ordinary surfaces, what are the warning signs we miss in our own communities? And when those warning signs appear, who bears the ultimate responsibility for intervention? This is a story of family destroyed, trust betrayed, and lives irrevocably changed. A story that lingers long after the last word is spoken, urging us to reflect on the choices we make, the relationships we maintain, and the dark currents that can run beneath the surface of even the most seemingly ordinary families. The Christmas card, once a symbol of holiday cheer, now stands as a grim reminder of how a simple gesture of goodwill unveiled one of South Dakota's most horrific family massacres, 3 lives extinguished, and countless others forever changed in a town where everyone thought they knew their neighbors. Don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Diaries and click on the notification bell to stay updated on our next episode of True Crime.